Welcome back to another episode of Rob Sports Center, man. As you can see by the title and by the thumbnail, for one, the football season has officially started NFL-wise. Obviously, we know college has been back rocking and rolling, but we finally got the NFL season kicked off last night. We had a division matchup between the Cowboys and the Eagles, and obviously, you know, man, whenever you have when you have a division matchup, two teams that's kind of familiar with each other, more times than not, those are going to result in some good football games just because the familiarity that you have playing a division rival twice a year. So I'm going to go through and break down some film from Jalen Hurts' game against the Cowboys. So first, I'm gonna read off the stat lines of what he had. So he threw for 19 of 23. 23 out of 23 passes, he was able to complete 19. He threw for 152 yards. He threw for 0 touchdowns. He threw for 0 interceptions. So if you're looking at the passing, the attempts and the completions, I mean, he had a pretty solid game, meaning he kind of was being conservative with the ball and not trying to force nothing and kind of really just taking what the defense gave him. And a lot of times that's ultimately what quarterbacking is just taking what the defense gave you, what the defense give you. In a lot of ways, you just don't want to hurt the team with taking useless sacks, with throwing interceptions, getting strip sack in the pocket, not just having the awareness. So a lot of that kind of goes into quarterbacking. He had a pretty good game on the ground. He carried the ball 14 times for a total of 62 yards. He averaged 4.4 yards a carry for 2 touchdowns. And right here, you got the very first play. So obviously, man, if you're familiar with my videos, whenever I'm breaking down film, man, I always overstress the importance of the red zone, because a lot of times games are won and lost in the red zone. You know what I mean? Whenever you get down to the red zone, for one, it's hard enough to get down there as it is. But whenever you finally do get down there, you want to make sure that you're coming up with points. And obviously, you would rather score touchdowns opposed to field goals, but you would take field goals if the situation calls for it. Because like I said, the name of the game is to put points up. So right here, you have a third down play. It looked like the Cowboys were probably in a zone. Because I'm looking at them, and they kind of, you're looking at it, a lot of them, they're kind of looking at Jalen Hurts. Obviously, they're looking at the receivers too, because when you're in the red zone, everything becomes so much more tight and compressed. So you got to kind of be able to watch both, because if you kind of overcommit watching Jalen Hurts, then you got guys behind you that'll be able to just kind of find those little soft spots and sit down and give Jalen Hurts a target to be able to throw from. But also too, whenever you get down to the red zone, especially this close in, the quickest and the easiest way to get into the end zone is running the football. And obviously, when you have mobile quarterbacks, guys like Jalen Hurts who can maneuver out the pocket and run for the touchdown, it makes it so much hard because you have so much more that you have to defend. You already have to deal with the threat of Saquon Barkley, and then you already got to deal with the threat of A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. So now when you factor in the threat of him being able to hurt you with his legs, it just makes it a very rough matchup for the defense. So right here, Cowboys really had it covered initially. Jalen Hurts, went through his progressions. He worked from right to left, didn't see nothing open, and obviously, the offensive line held up pretty good. Cowboys only rushed 4 guys right there. When he realized that it wasn't nothing open, obviously, he just decided to go ahead and scramble and run for the touchdown. And they were successful. So like I say, man, when you get to the red zone, this is what you want to happen. You want to be able to, get the ball into the end zone to put up touchdowns, because like I say, the name of the game is scoring points. And then, like I said, another thing too, we always talk about, like with Jalen Hurts, he gets a lot of criticism, you know what I mean? And people just talk about, if you're going based off of the stats. But like I say, sometimes we have to understand that the term game manager isn't necessarily a bad thing. I think that in more ways than not, that's good, because would you want your quarterback to go out there and try to force feed and make plays happen that's not necessarily there and cause turnovers that hurt the team? Jalen Hurts is very, protective of the football, whether that be him just, taking what the defense gave him, or whether that be plays right here, just identifying that there's nothing deep in the secondary. Okay, I am able to run the ball, and let me just run it in for the touchdown. So I think that this was a very good, smart play on his end. So right here, we got another guy to have a situation. We have a 3rd and 5. And this is always, too, another deciding factor in games that's won and lost. From a defensive standpoint, you want to be able to get off the field on 3rd down. And from an offensive standpoint, you want to be able to stay on the field in 3rd down. And this goes back to the tush push, right? So, they was trying to get that banned during this offseason. So everybody was like, man, it's not football. You can't stop it, yada, yada, yada. And the recipe to stopping the tush push, and I get it, I know it's easier said than done, was just keep Philadelphia out of short yardage situations. Make them have to put them in a position to where they're on the 3rd and 5, to where they have to hand the ball off, to where they have throw the ball off, to where Jalen Hurts has to run from out of the backfield, make it keep them in those situations, and then the tush push doesn't it becomes least effective because it's only dangerous when it's in short yardage situation. You know what I mean? So that's one way to stop it, is just keep them out of those short yardage situations, keep them in 3rd and 5, 3rd and 4, 3rd and 6, 7, 8, et cetera, et cetera. And that's how you defeat the tush push. So right here, it looks like the Cowboys were in a man coverage. You see that they got a single high safety, meaning that the field was closed. So normally you have single high, 2 high, and that kind of can identify exactly what it is that they're in. So normally when you're in a single high, you're going to be, for the most part, be in 2 different coverages, which would be man and zone, and that would be a cover 1 and a cover 3. So right here, pre-snap wise, if you're looking at how deep the corners are, it kind of does look like that they may have been in the cover 3, but I believe that it was a man coverage, and I think that by them playing so off, they were trying to take away the options of anything kind of going a little bit more vertically behind them. So they tried to keep everything underneath them. Do you look at the linebacker? One of the linebackers end up releasing, the running back released at the backfield, and they used the banjo technique on that. Depending on which way he went, if he released out the backfield to the left, then the weak side backer would have got him, and then if he would have released to the right, then a Mike backer would have got him. Now the Mike backer probably should have, since he didn't have any covering responsibilities, he probably should have spied Jalen Hurts to possibly take away from this option, and he didn't, and they only rushed 4, and they wasn't able to get back there to him. Jalen Hurts had a good amount of time back there. The offensive line was holding up on blocking, and then at the end of the day, like I said, man, one of the things that makes him so lethal is the ability to extend plays, the ability to be able to create plays. One of the things that we talk about when we talk about quarterbacks, is the ability to make the second play better than the first play, and that's exactly what he does right here. He's able to, make the second play much better than the first play because nothing was there initially. So he just pretty much tucked the ball and ended up running for the first down. Once again, defense had a shot at bringing him down right there, and then even right there, both of those guys missed a tackle, and he was able to not only pick the first down up, but then run for some additional yards as well. All right, so we got another gotta have a situation, man. We got a 2nd and goal. Normally, when you hear me talk about gotta have a situations, that's normally 3rd down plays and 4th down plays. But like I always say, man, I always overstress the importance of the red zone. I mean, prime example, just look at this. The 2 times that they did get to the red zone, 2 of the times that they have gotten there so far, they've came up with 7 points. So that's 14 points right there. So that's why I always try to overstress the importance of the red zone, because more times than not, games are won and lost down there. And once again, what do we go back to? So when you get to the red zone, the easiest way to score points down there is just simply running the ball in, because now you don't have to throw in too much of a messy look. And what I mean by a messy look is because the field is so much more condensed now, because look at how close you are to the end zone. So that means more times than not, there's going to be a lot of defenders prevalent in a lot of those passing situations just because of the shortness of the field. So more times than not, a quarterback can be thrown into some ugly pitches, and a lot of times thrown into ugly pitches, man, results into the turnovers, whether that be a interception or a corner just reading the route, whether that be a ball just being tipped, or whether that be a guy covering one guy, but then paying attention to the quarterback, or being able to get his eyes back to the quarterback and see where the quarterback is throwing, and being able to get off of his guy to be able to come make a play on the ball. So it just creates a whole bunch of chaos and confusion down there. So just being able to run the ball in is much more easier. So right here, once again, like the Cowboys was caught up in another man coverage. And I don't understand exactly why they wasn't spying Jalen Hurts, especially in this play and especially in the other play. Because I think even when you look at the Mike backer once again, I mean, you see that he was matched up on the running back. So, but I mean, you could have drew it up to where you would have had a spy on Jalen Hurts, because like I say, man, guys like him, they become even much more dangerous when you get down to the red zone, just because it becomes so much easier for them to run the ball in. I mean, you got to think, if you're looking at it, if they're working from maybe, let's say, from the 20-yard line, and they trying to work the length of the field, them running the ball isn't really that lethal, because I mean, in a longer field of situation, it's just simply a first down, right? But when you get to the red zone now, that first down run turns into a touchdown run. You get what I'm saying? So you most definitely want to try to kind of have a spy on him. Now, granted, I know that does pull a guy out of pass coverage, but sometimes it is what it is, because when you got a guy like Jalen Hurts, man, he has the consistent ability to make the second play much better than the first play, and that's exactly what he does right here. The Eagles offensive line did a phenomenal job with just being being able to hold up and buy him as much time as he had. You look at him kind of go through his progressions once again, work from the right side of the field on over to the left side of the field, and nothing was really there. And you look at nothing but green grass right there, and green grass for a guy like Jalen Hurts is a picture for a defense that you do not want to see, and it just becomes a foot race to the pylon. And obviously you see he won that race. All right, so right here we got another guy to have a situation. We got another 3rd and 6, and what did I say? Once again, how do you defeat the tush push? Keep them out of 3rd and short situations. Keep them out of 4th and short situations. Right here, you got another 3rd and 6. So you've seen most of their 3rd downs have been 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6. So guess what? Now you take away the option of them being able to tush push, and you take away from the option of them. Now, granted, it is Saquon, so you can just hand the ball off to him, and he can make turn water into wine. So with having Saquon, you do have a guy who has that big play potential, but for the most part, they're probably not going to hand that ball off. They're probably going to try to throw the ball for the first down. So right here, they do just that. So it looked like the Cowboys. So I was looking at the defense and pre-snap. At first, it looks like they might have been in the cover on one, but then I'm looking at the depth of the other safety as well, and then I'm looking at the corners also. If you pay attention, that they're playing with their butts to the sideline. So more times than not, a lot of that probably is zone coverage. But it looks like. But the thing is, to me, I'm trying to decipher it because you see that they take a shot down the field. Right. So it looks like based off of the coverage that they might have possibly been in the cover 4, I want to say. And then you kind of got 3 guys underneath. And once again, you didn't have a spy on Jalen Hurts, but this time right here, he didn't necessarily run. And like I say, man, the thing about Jalen Hurts is that I think that whatever the play is that needs to be made, he can make it. And I think that a lot of times, just because we don't see more of this right here, a lot of people try to discredit him as a quarterback. But like I said, at the end of the day, you just got to be good at understanding what the defense is doing and what they're trying to take away, and what they're giving up, because every defense has strengths and every defense has weaknesses, right? So part of the game in terms of a quarterback is understanding the strengths and the weaknesses, because once you understand the strengths and the weaknesses, you know exactly how to attack it. So I'm looking at if you're looking at Jalen Hurts' eyes, kind of just pay attention to his eyes with him kind of looking at the middle of the field to a degree, kind of looking towards the leftish, maybe towards the middle of the field. And basically what I'm getting at is that I think that he kind of did a good job, because obviously the safeties probably were reading his eyes, and by obviously reading the quarterback's eyes as a safety, is an indicator of probably where the ball is going to go. But when you have experienced quarterbacks, they do a good job at kind of being a little deceptive with their eyes and kind of cheating their eyes to the inside, and being able to create something towards going a little bit more towards the outside. So if you look at it right here, you look at his eyes, he's kind of looking towards the leftish middle leftish of the field right there. And then he finally whips his head back kind of towards the right, and then takes that shot. But what he was doing was just trying to kind of take the safety out of place, to be able to throw the ball. And he delivers a dart right here, man. This was a pretty deep step. Obviously, once again, man, got to have a situation. The pass rush was really non-existent. It pretty much was a clean pocket for him right here. And he just pretty much drops back, and able to deliver that ball in routine, and just delivers a pretty ball, man. He puts that thing up there. He kind of just falls into the pocket of the receiver right there. And then he even gave the receiver opportunities to run after the catch along with that pass as well. All right, so we got another guy to have a situation right here. We got a 3rd and 3, and this most definitely was a guy to have it for both parties, especially for the Eagles, because last thing you wanted to do was put the ball back into the Cowboys' hands with one timeout, and with a decent amount of time left on the clock. So, like I say, it goes back to even with Jalen Hurts, man. Like when we talk about Jalen Hurts, I think that a lot of times you kind of overlook the fact that his game isn't as flashy as a Lamar Jackson. It isn't as flashy as a Jaden Daniels. It isn't as flashy as a Patrick Mahomes. But I look at the effectiveness, right? So we're gonna look at a prime example. Like let's go backtrack and let's think about basketball. When you think about guys like Luka, and guys like like that, like guys like Paul Pierce, that they might not have been the fastest and the most athletic. So their game might not have looked as, what's the word I'm looking for, as appealing of a Kyrie Irving, or as appealing of a guy like a Jamal Crawford, a guy who has these ridiculous handles, but their game was effective. It was fundamentally sound. You know what I mean? They made the plays that they need to they made the plays that they need to make when they need to make them. And that's the equivalent to Jalen Hurts. So when you look at it, okay, it's not going to really just pop out to you on the stat sheet for one, and then it's probably not going to pop out to you appealing as well. But I'm looking at it and saying it's effective, because that style of play has led to 2 Super Bowl appearances, and one being one and one being won. And not only was it was won in dominant fashion, right? So a lot of the times that's what we need to kind of pay attention to when we talk about Jalen Hurts, is his clutchness, and the ability to make the plays whenever those plays are needed to be made. So like I said, you got a guy that haven't, you got a 3rd and 3. And once again, it goes back to showing you exactly how you stop the tush push, keep them out of those very short yardage situations. So right here, obviously they come back in a shotgun, and Jalen Hurts just kind of kills them the way he's been killing them all night long. And that's with his legs. You look at him once again, he kind of went through his progressions. He worked from the right to the left. He kind of identified that the Cowboys probably wasn't really going to give up much. And he just pretty much just goes up, and just, runs for the first down. And another thing that I'm looking at too is that the Cowboys, they're going to kind of have to work on their pass rush in a sense, because it's kind of been non-existent against the Eagles. It wasn't as bad. You look at the guy on the inside, he kind of was working against, and I think and the thing about that too, that was a replacement lineman, if I'm not mistaken, because the other lineman kind of had some back problems. So I think that was the guy that ended up going down. So it was a guy who's not a starter, but the Cowboys interior defender, was able to get some type of little pull and pressure to try to get up the middle. But obviously, when you're dealing with a guy like Jalen Hurts, man, he's just pretty much like right here, he's just going to step up because they kind of rush past him in a sense and give him that free lane. And man, he just makes the play on the guy that have a situation, gets the first down, and pretty much seals the game off. So all in all, man, it was a good performance from Jalen Hurts. Like I said, man, if you're looking at the stat sheet, it's probably not going to pop out to you, but when you go and decipher and watch the game, and you look at those guys that have situations, those 3rd downs, those red zone possessions that led to touchdowns, then you say, okay, I see why this guy is who a lot of us say he is. But man, that is it for this video, man. If you guys did enjoy this video, do me a big favor, man. Smash that thumbs up button. Also, if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe. And when you subscribe, make sure that you got that notification bell turned on, and where you be notified every time I upload. And I'll see y'all in the next video.